So when are you thinking, like, when you find these like small shops to make the frame and the suspension parts, how long is that going to take? Is it going to take a month to make it, 2 months to make it? Because I mean, we're waiting on
Um,
that before we can have a drivable PI, right?
yeah, I mean, the quickest frame quote we got was 22 days.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty aggressive.
Yeah,
But it ranges from, kind of 22 days to 12 weeks.
right.
Uh, so we're trying to pick something that, matches our schedule. It's not, having it here too early doesn't help either. So paying a lot
Correct.
of money to have it here in, 3 weeks, if we're not ready for it with other components, that
Right.
doesn't do anything either. So, but the electrical team is making great progress, with the wiring harness and the drivetrain and all the, complementary electronics. So, I think in 2 or 3 weeks, the EE team will be ready. So
Mhm.
I think if we can get the frame parts here in a month or 6 weeks, I
Mhm.
think that's probably a good bet to try to get those here in that
Okay.
time.
So
And
it's
then
sounding
we load
like,
them up and,
so kind of best case scenario, we should have like a PI drivable in about 2 months.
I think that's probably a good bet.
Okay. All right.
June, July, so into July, I wouldn't overpromise and say,
Sure.
probably wouldn't be August. And September is not out of the question.
Yeah.
But we're excited to see all this stuff come together, and we want to drive the production version as quickly as possible too. And
Yeah.
I think this is kind of where everything comes together. I've had a lot of companies over the year. This is my ninth startup. I've been through battery development programs, and my first company was computer networking. But every company kind of have this vision for what the product is.
Hmm.
Start making it, and eventually, it just seems like things start clicking, and stuff starts to come together. And I've been through a bunch of boat projects where that happens, where you've worked on this thing for 6 months, and now all the pieces of the puzzle come together, and next thing you know, you're out on a lake wakeboarding behind it, and it all is working fabulously. So that's kind of the point where we're at now. We've done all the hard work the last 6 months, and now we're starting to get these parts in, and this is where the fun starts.
Okay, great. Because like I know that at the very beginning, there's a lot of unknowns, right?
Yeah.
When you like when you started when you guys restarted this in what like late 2019, early 2020, there was a lot of unknowns, and there was some thought that like maybe we would have customer vehicles by 2022 or something like that. Obviously, didn't happen.
Yeah,
Um,
we started with a very different vision for what the vehicle could be.
uh-huh,
And the way that we kind of conceived of the vehicle was, 1 to 4,000 vehicles a year. And that's very different than where we ended up.
I see.
And it's really because of the volume, of interest that we've had, that it's like, no, we can't build 3 or 4,000 of these a year. We've got to build 10, 20, 50,000 of these things a year,
Uh-huh,
or we're just never going to meet demand. And the whole goal of the company is to make the world a better place through efficient transportation. It
uh-huh,
doesn't do anybody or the world any good if we only put 100 out a year.
uh-huh,
It does the world good if you start to really displace combustion vehicles. And at 50,000 vehicles a year, that's millions of barrels of oil, that you're taking out. That's compared to other EVs, that's millions of pounds of extra batteries that weren't wasted on big, heavy, inefficient EVs.
hmm.
It's just a totally different way to think about how transportation should work. And we always thought, you gotta price it right so people love it. You got to give it all the performance you can so people, can find it really useful. And, a little inspiration along the way doesn't hurt, by making Jason Hill work extra hard to make it sexy and,
Yeah.
looking and extra functional. So I think we've hit on all those marks, and now we've got to, deliver on the promise. And, COVID being in the middle of our plans
Yeah.
did help. And we're really still feeling the effects of COVID. The supply chain, is just finally starting to settle down
Mhm.
after COVID. And the last 6 months, we've seen just dramatic changes in commodity prices for aluminum, battery cell prices, for high nickel content batteries have dropped through the floor.
Mhm.
So it's a very different place that we live in now than we did 6 months ago. And I think I'm
Yeah.
glad that we've had the extra time, and that our community's been supportive of us, kind of doing it the right way. And even though we haven't had that benefactor come to us with $100 million check, that we're still making progress every day. And the first vehicles are right around the corner, and production's right around after that corner. So I think we're in a really good spot. Even though times get stressful over the last 2 years for sure, on how do we make it happen, and feeling the pressure of 48,000 people now that have orders for the Aptera. We have a great ballpark down here, Petco Park, but it only fits 43,000 people. So we have an overcapacity crowd of
Hmm.
people that are waiting for Aptera, and we all feel it here, and we want to deliver as soon as we can. And obviously, the sooner that we're cash flow positive, the sooner all the fundraising stress is off, and then you're just optimizing and trying to build bigger, better volumes and different variants of the vehicle, and talking about four-wheeled Apteras and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's the goal, and I've done that with plenty of other companies. Once you get to cash flow positivity, things get a lot brighter. So that's the
Hmm.
goal. Vehicles get to cash flow positive quickly, and now we're on pace for 2025. So let's make it happen.
What do you say about the idea of like, so you originally when you guys started, you were like, oh, maybe we'll sell like 1,000 of these, maybe 5,000 of these, and I guess you guys were thinking about kind of hand building them one by one down in Carlsbad at that point. Was that what the idea?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it hand building,
Oh.
but the tack time of building 3 to 5 a day is
Hmm.
very different than building 40 or 80 a day.
Right.
Uh, so, you can station build stuff. That's how a lot of my boats were built
Uh-huh.
in early days, when we were shipping, 700 boats a year. It was just a station. It had 2 or 3 guys in the station, and the boat was just built stem to stern in the station.
Hmm.
The boat shell ended up there, and then they just had a shelf full of parts, and they just installed all those parts until the boat was done. Then you'd go out and run it on a lake and quality check it, and then you'd ship it off to a dealer.
Hmm.
We could have done that with the Aptera,
Okay.
including, the composites, very much so like we built boats, but it's terribly inefficient.
Yeah.
And if you want to scale it, it's very difficult to scale. And, once we had, kind of 10,000, 20,000 orders, it was like, how do we scale this archaic process into something that could deliver, on the mass market promise of Aptera?
Mhm.
And it was apparent that we needed to find new partners. And that's, a coach found CPC. He had a relationship with him before. He worked at Shelby Supercars, and done amazing projects with them before, and they were just the right fit at the right time. And they just love the promise of solar mobility. I think
Mhm.
a lot of what has really gotten us into the good graces of very capable suppliers is that we're so different.
Mhm.
Everything else they've worked on could be cool, could be a very sexy sports car, but it ain't solar mobility. It ain't something that looks like the future.
Yeah.
And I think the executives of these companies, they see a presentation like Aptera and they go, oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's cool. I want to be associated with that. So
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
think everyone loves the idea and like, the design and about efficiency and all that. So I think that like it's very clear that you guys have a very strong fan base. And look, I started this YouTube channel. I'm not anything of a good YouTuber, but it blew up mainly because of the idea. Um, and so what do you say to the idea of like some people saying like maybe you should have done the 1,000 vehicles a year, delivered some vehicles, and maybe that would have gotten you funding faster because people would say, oh yeah, this company can deliver a vehicle. Like what do you say to that?
Well, I've seen other companies make that mistake.
Mhm.
And Sandy Monroe, has advised companies like that. And we've seen companies, go public and do, crazy things, and have that be the case. Um, and we thought, with the expertise of Sandy Monroe and, the advice that we've gotten from other people that have been in the manufacturing game,
Mhm.
that if you want to build 50,000 vehicles a year, you need to capitalize the company, you need to organize the company, you need to design your manufacturing plant to build 50,000 vehicles a year.
Mhm.
You can ramp it up slowly, but if you don't build with that mindset, if you start building 2 vehicles a day, and then you tell the plant, hey, we're going to scale from 2 vehicles a day to 4 vehicles a day, people are like, that's twice the amount of work.
Hmm.
How the hell am I going to do that? I'm already working my butt off to build 2 a day, and now you want to build 4 a day?
Hmm.
So, unless you start with, hey, we're going to build 40 a day, and this single shift can build 40 a day, and then we're going to add a second shift that can do just what you're doing, which is building 40 a day. It's just a very difficult path. And I've seen companies waste millions and millions of dollars because they haven't had the mindset from the beginning to really build at a decent volume that they could get, kind of economies of scale and actually become cash flow positive. And it's just buried them slowly. It's just death by a thousand cuts.
Hmm.
Uh, you're inefficient with your workforce, you're inefficient with your space, you're not making any money on the final product. Now you've got, kind of a product that people aren't willing to pay a premium for because it doesn't have enough features. But, oh, we just wanted to start small and we wanted to start simple and we just wanted to get vehicles out there. Well, it just doesn't mesh well with changing the world. And I think we've been lucky to have great advisors like Sandy Monroe, and Sandy Monroe strongly advised us to not design a plant to build 2 of these a day,
Hmm.
or you will succumb to the pressures that a lot of other startups have succumbed to in the transportation space, and it will bury you slowly, and you will rue the day that you showed me a 2 vehicle a day manufacturing plan.
Okay. All right. So if we see, let's say see a PI like August, how long are you guys expecting like all the PI testing and validation to take? Is that going to take like 6 months, 8 months, 9 months?
A lot of the initial stuff gets done pretty quick. I
Mhm.
mean, the crash lab stuff and that stuff, I mean, it happens in weeks. It's really some of the bigger checks that we have to write for like the ABS system and the airbags and stuff like that, that the companies that we have to get on board to do that take a long time. So it sucks that we're kind of beholden to the schedules of other companies once we have funding and start, our own validation. But it's kind of in the 6 to 9 month range.
Okay.
Um, but keep in mind that just because we haven't finished all of the validation with a supplier doesn't mean we can't ship vehicles. So we can add some features after we, ship the first 20 or 100 or 200.
Mhm.
You probably don't want too many out in the field where you have to come back in and, flash them for different features and stuff.
Mhm.
But that is something that, we expect. We don't expect like some companies, Ford and GM and Toyota, they would go through every ounce of all of that validation and would never, ship some of their vehicles out until everything is buttoned up. We expect that, some of the stuff, the user interface stuff, will evolve rapidly
Mhm.
as we start to deliver our first vehicles. And the first deliveries and the first accelerators that have some of the early spots, we're going to expect feedback, and they're they're part of the family. And the first vehicles, whether it's something is squeaking because we didn't put a buffer pad on the back of it or something like that,
Mhm.
um, we'll learn all of that stuff very quickly, and it's something that I think is largely expected. Um, but with the anxiousness to get vehicles on the road, I think it's just the right approach. We could take the extra 6 months to really button up everything and have an internal test fleet that, we put over, 2 million miles on and stuff.
Mhm.
But I think, it's just right that we work with all of our validation partners, and, we get the vehicle to a point where we feel it's stable and as safe as it can be.
Mhm.
And then some of the other usability stuff is stuff that we sort out over the first couple months of the
Yeah.
first deliveries. And then, it takes us kind of 3 to 6 months to ramp up to rate production anyways. So, while we're ramping up to rate production,
Mhm.
we can figure out some of those growing pains, problems, and some of the stuff that you just don't learn until vehicles are in people's hands.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that, you guys are in a good position in that way because, like, obviously the first several thousand vehicles are going to go to accelerators, and these people are very invested in the success of Aptera, and they'll be willing to help you guys, you know, test it. I think the community will be very supportive of that to get out faster.
Yeah, I mean, we've been super humbled by the amazing support and kind of thinking through problems that our community has done. I mean, we've got community guys out testing um, the wrap materials in aggressive, New Mexico weather, and we've got guys that are thinking through some of the software data issues for the telematics, and we've had a lot of great people that have just offered to help as we for volume production. And I think it'll be the same when we ship our first vehicles. I hope that people are just ready and willing to embrace the first production vehicles. And if something very minor is wrong, let's get it fixed. Let's get it fixed quick. Let's get a change on the assembly line and start to change every vehicle. And I think it's something that Tesla did a pretty good job early on. I had an early Tesla Model S, and I loved it. But from a quality perspective, if you would have compared it to Toyota or Ford or GM, the production engineers in Detroit would have laughed it out of the building. But Tesla was very good at rolling changes. And when they discovered something that needed to be fixed, they would just fix it. If they discovered a supplier that supplied a better part, a more quality part, they would just switch it. And it's something that Detroit was just not capable of. And I think it's something that Tesla really showed the way on, that, hey, these lockdown vehicles where you build the same exact vehicle for 5 years, that is not how manufacturing should work. You got to take consumer feedback. You got to make the product continually better. Some of the Toyota manufacturing methods of continual improvement. And I think Tesla's exemplified that in a lot of ways. And, they've proven to be, with the Model Y, the most popular vehicle in the world now in sales. Who would have thought a decade ago that the Tesla Model Y would be the best-selling vehicle in the world? No pundit, no industry analyst, no one would have said that. But here we are. So, Sandy Monroe agrees with that philosophy, and it's something that he fought in Detroit, all the time. Their stodginess just wouldn't allow them to fix things. So we want to make the Aptera product better every day. We want to embrace the aftermarket, so we can have great accessories and support for the vehicle. We want to let people know how their vehicle works. So if they want to make it better or make a product to make it better, then they just know. And I think that's kind of in the Aptera spirit and the way we want to build a company. So.
Yeah. So you're kind of designing the factory to be just very nimble in the supply chain, so that you can make changes fairly easily.
Yeah, exactly.